Hey guys, it's Michael Todd and welcome to the Culture of Vintage. I'm really excited about today's video. If you didn't figure it out yet, we're going to take this antique magazine and this craft box that I got at Walmart and we're going to make a puppet theater, but we're going to elevate it a little bit. Let's do it. Here we go. This is the delineator from January of 1919. We're going to get in here. They did a variety of different the dogs are running around, paper dolls, etc. Oh, there it is. This one just happens to be the paper doll theater from Alice in Wonderland. So that's pretty amazing. I was really excited about it. Down here we see our directions. Turn to page 31. And here we go. We've got our directions right here. But I'm going to make some things a little bit different. For example, we're not going to use a cardboard box. We're going to use the craft box. Now, thankfully, due to technology, we're going to do some full color scans of these, so we're not actually going to cut up the antique magazine. Yay! I want to keep this original. So, because the magazine is a little large, and the scanner I have is just like a standard size, you're going to see that, these are cut off. That's okay. We're going to do different scans of down here because we will need those pieces. But of course, what would our theater be without our actors? Now, while I did do a color scan, I also did a black and white, and I'm going to use this black and white one for a template. We're going to have to cut out the theater, and then we actually cut out this interior scene, because this interior scene is going to go to the back of our box, and this is going to frame our theater. So now we have our template cut out, and you just see it laying here on the craft box. What I'm going to do is... We're literally doing this in the kitchen sink, so kitchen island. I'm going to leave the latches up so that we can open and close it as such. I actually kind of like the idea of the handle being on it. I think it would make it as a cute little carrying case. I do have some other embellishments that I may or may not add to, but before we get to doing the pencil line or the cutting out of anything, we're going to tape this down a little bit. Maybe actually. So here it is in the box. I'm going to actually trace that out with a pencil, and then we're going to X-Acto knife out this interior part here because this is where we're going to be looking through. While I know that there is a lot of dead space up here, we do have some plans I'm thinking about. I'm not committed to anything right now, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna get that done, and then we'll come back. Ultimately did decide to tape it down just in case. We're back with our outline. Now the only thing we have to do is bust out our X-Acto knife. Now I will say this, I was a little reticent on this, but I will tell you this, that this wood, I mean, here you can see the diameter on that one, the thickness, I don't think that's diameter, the thickness of the wood. So we should be able to get through there no problem with our X-Acto knife. Fingers crossed. I'm going to do that, and hopefully we'll be back with a cutout box. So we did it. We cut the hole. I got to say, this wood was a little bit tougher than I thought, but it looks like there's a veneer, a very thin veneer on top of it that kind of held it together a little bit more. So I'm going to do some sanding here quick. We're going to move on to the next phase. I'm excited. All right, so here it is now. Cut out. We do have I'm just kind of giving us a quick preview so you can see that back image there is our backdrop for the play. Don't worry, I know we're seeing a lot of dead space here on the sides, but remember the rose bushes, those are going to go there. And obviously looking at it from height, you're not going to see the top of it. Clearly, this is just simply not going to do it. I said we were going to zhuzh it up, and we're going to zhuzh it up. I went back and forth on the next step so far as color. I decided, because I want this to look more of like an antique vibe, to go ahead and do a stain. Now, I went between a dark walnut or ebony. I ultimately settled on the ebony because I think with that orange, it's really going to help our colors pop out even more. So I'm going to pull these pieces off, and we're going to stain the entirety, all of the sides and on the interior too. So picked it up at Walmart. All right, so there we have our stained ebony box. I'm digging it. I like the overall aesthetics of it all. I think it looks cute. We might embellish it a little more. We'll see. Let's see what it looks like with the paper on it. So there it is. The colors are definitely jumping out on that black. I definitely am glad we went with it. Don't worry, we're going to dress it up a little bit more. I don't want to leave it so plain, though I would say it wouldn't be horrible if we did. But more design choices coming up. So the next thing I got to do is I have to let this completely dry. And then what we're going to do is we're going to Mod Podge this and that back image. That one is staying stationary, so we're going to attach those via Mod Podge. Yeah, I'm feeling inspired. So what I did was I took these stencils, this paint with a little bouncer, what are they called? Yes, spouncer. We took this and turned it into this. Is our back. Obviously, I used the stencil and used parts of the stencil to combine this. I'm thinking I might just put a pressed wood piece in here. Debating. Check out the top. I wanted to keep that relatively simple. I was tempted to put a flower here. I may, look at that gold polish. I may put one in there, maybe a small one. This one could live in there, but I feel like that would be too small. This I feel like would be too big. Maybe this one actually, right there. Think about that. And I did do this for the sides. Now, I clearly did it for both sides. I'm going to keep that relatively simple, simply because it's the sides. But I have this one here. I'm really liking that. Now, the question is, what do we do on the front? I'm almost tempted. Like, I want to do these, but do I do the stencil right over the theater? Like this part? Do I do molding? Like, build out some molding here. Picture frame it, if you will. We're going to have to make choices. Okay, so while I decide, what I'm going to do is I do want to adhere our back image to the back. I'm going to take a tape measure and make sure that it is even back there. And I'm just going to glue that back scene onto the back. Okay, so that is glued in. Don't worry about the excess up here. That's going to dry clear. And besides, we're actually not going to see that anyhow. The next step is we're going to create a little depth. We have this piece, so you can have this as the garden scene, or this one gets placed over front of it. Note that we have the cutouts here to the left and to the right. I'm going to go ahead and cut those out. Then what we're going to do is we're going to attach that to a piece of balsa wood. And I'm wondering, I don't know that I want to lay it flat against there. I kind of want to have it pulled out a little bit. So we're going to do... I think I'm going to put in like a little bit of a frame that runs here along the sides so that we have somewhere for it to stick to, probably about an inch out. Okay. We'll see how. So that has been cut out. Admittedly, because some of the cuts were so tight, I did elect to use an X-Acto knife and a very fine tipped pair of scissors, not like your standard cutting. So that's how we accomplished that. I did still catch a couple of burrs on there. I'm not too fussed with that because once you see what we're going to do with it, it won't, pardon me, it won't. So we're going to need something to affix this image to, and I am just using your standard craft balsa wood. It's not very thick. This one's a good scrap piece. You can see I've used it to paint some other things on, and that's totally fine because we are going to end up staining this. Now I have a pencil mark here. This is the length that we're going to need. It is not as tall as what it should be, but it's not going to matter because, again, we only have the preview slot to look through, and I'll show you what that looks like in here. I'm just gonna snip this off. So like I said, I want to create a little bit of dimension in between this backdrop and the king and queen scene, so that way you can kind of see, you see a little bit of the garden back there, which is, oh my gosh, I love that. Now I do have these 1-inch square blocks, which I think are going to be perfect. I don't want it to be too far away. We don't have a lot of stage room here, but I still want to have there be enough gap that we're getting that dimension. So what I'm going to do is we're going to glue 4 blocks to each of the 4 corners, and of course up here. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how we're going to make this kind of temporary. These will be permanently glued in, but how we do a temporary thing so we can pop the king and court scene out. Fingers crossed this works out. While our glue blocks dry, I'm going to go ahead and stain this, and I'm going to use that same stain because clearly this thing is not going to cover the entirety of it. I'm going to stain it first. I'm going to do both sides, and then what we're going to do is we're going to let it dry. We're going to glue this piece down. Then, or no, I'm not. I'm going to let it dry. We're going to lay this down. We're going to trace the outline out here. We're going to cut that out so that we can see the behind the scenes. I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to come together. And while all that dries, we're going to go ahead and cut out our shrubs here. Now, they don't actually call for these to be cut out, but we're going to go ahead and do it just so that we have the extra pieces in case we decide to use those for backdrops. All right, so I got that cut out, which was not fun. I'm going to have to do some touch-ups here because that slop from earlier, unfortunately, it was veneer, so it's kind of giving us sloppy vibes, which is what we're not after. So I'm only going to have to touch up out here. I may go ahead. I did end up using this as a pattern because I had to do some cuts in there. Don't worry, I can just make another photocopy. We'll have to do a little bit of extra trimming. It got a little rough in there. And what I'm going to do is just take a Sharpie, a black Sharpie, and fill in where you see the unstained side. So a couple more processes to go, and then we will be there. So we got her glued on there. Like I said, this is showing up pretty rough, so we're gonna have to try to restain that. That's not the look we're really going for, but I'm very pleased with this. I still have to go through with the Sharpie on that. And keeping in mind while we were doing that, I did glue our shrubs down here to another piece of balsa wood. We're going to cut this out. I did stain the back of this in just kind of like a walnut stain. I think for the figural pieces, the stage pieces, we're going to keep it with the walnut. I like that look. So yeah, let's test this out and see how it looks. Okay, so I do have some stain that's still in here drying, and I did go ahead and stain the blocks so that way we don't see them. Let's insert it and see how we're looking. Oh gosh. It's giving us the look that we're after. I'm really pleased with that. Let's close it up and look at the entire thing. There it is. Check it out. I am so pleased. That's kind of how we would look through it. But we do have those black gaps there on the left and the right. And that is, you know, for our shrubs over here, those are going to go in there to kind of block that out so we don't see those sides. Oh my gosh, I'm really pleased with that. Here is a quick update. Oh my gosh, this was intense. We obviously got these glued onto the board. I then went through and X-Acto knifed them out. I did take some sandpaper, some very fine sandpaper to smooth out some of the rougher edges. I'm going to go in with a Sharpie around all of these edges to fill that in just so it's, yeah, it doesn't stand out like that. So we got both of those done. I did do the smaller ones, and I also attached to the back little stands. Now clearly I'm going to have to go and restain that to match it, but that will then allow these guys to stand up. I am not going to be able to do it with these. This is too lightweight for these guys. They're too big. They'll just topple right over. So I'm almost like, do I do the old like square kind of thing? But I feel like that's going to be too big. Maybe I could do a smaller one. I'm going to have to do a little engineering on that one. Oh, the joy. So we did do that, which is really cool. Enjoying that. I elected to do this. You're not going to see it. I just like the finishing details to it. I think it makes it a little bit more polished. Like I said, you're not going to see this when it's inserted, especially because, again, we're going to have these blocking the sides visually. Might catch a little bit of it up at the top, and I'm quite frankly okay with that. So yeah, the next thing I'm going to do, and I still haven't Sharpied around there. I need to blacken those out. So that's going to be the next step. I think that's the biggest update that we have so far. So let me get to work. We're going to do a quick update on the theater. The first update is that I did attach this to the exterior. I did apply a layer of Mod Podge to it, which I'm really pleased with because the vibrancy, the color, really, it's much shinier. It's more dense and pretty. I did apply the Mod Podge back there also. Again, same effect to it. It definitely made the colors more vibrant. I added another layer of Mod Podge to our king and queen court scene here. Again, really creating more vibrancy, more richness in the color. So I'm very pleased with those results. Now, I did end up cutting out the small shrubs. I did get those, of course, from our garden scene. These have been sealed with the Mod Podge. Now, because they're a little bit darker, the color isn't as rich, but you can see there's a little bit of a sheen to it. Those were, of course, put onto, well, maybe. Those were put on, are we going to focus? Those were put onto, again, the balsa wood, and I did attach a small little piece of wood so that way they can stand up. And those are going to go right here or somewhere else just to add a little bit of dimension, but I did do that for 2. I have attached the shrubs, and again, we did get 2 of those. Those again have been attached to the balsa wood. These were fun to cut out in X-Acto. I did get in there with a Sharpie. I'm going to have to do a little bit more touch-up work to those. Clearly, these have not been Mod Podge, so they're a little matte looking. What I'm going to have to do is, because balsa wood is so thin, it has a tendency to like to curl, especially if you put any kind of stain, paint, anything with water, it has a tendency to curl. So I do have some wooden, let me see here, some wooden trim. I think I can reach it. Right here, we're going to run that down the back to keep it nice and straight. The other thing that I'm kind of struggling with right now is I need to find a weighted bottom because they are so tall. This wood is too lightweight to be able to sustain and keep it upright. So I'm really trying to deduce what I'm going to do with the bottoms here. I don't want it to be unsightly, which is a struggle. So yes, now I'm still to be determined on this exterior. I don't know if I want to embellish it again with like the stenciling, which I really like, or if I want to do more framing. I really feel like we need to have some framing going around here just for some more visual appeal. Maybe doing the entirety of it. I don't know. I'm really struggling with that one. Perhaps doing some, I would say maybe 1-inch molding around the entirety of it, and then doing some of the stamps, the decals. That might be having a little combination to both. Now, as I decide, the last thing that we're going to need to do then is to have our paper doll actors. I did go ahead and start cutting out, here's our Tea Party. I got the Mad Hatter cut out. I am going to leave these white bottoms on here because, again, I'm going to attach something down here, and then we'll just simply color these in, most likely black, so they kind of blend in a little bit there. We've got Alice cut out. I need to do the White Rabbit, and of course the Knave of Hearts. So I'm going to cut those 2 out while I decide what I'm doing here and how we're going to prevent this from toppling over. But you can see they go like in there to create that depth, so that way you don't see the black. All right, so we've got our characters all cut out. That is fun. I will say this, if you don't have a pair of fine tip scissors, you're really missing out. Especially to get a lot of the character details. They're so fine. I will say this, let's use the white rabbit as an example. We can do also with the Knave of Hearts here. This white space, clearly around the leaf, we've got it, where was it? Oh, between this, like his little scroll here and in between here. I'm going to, I don't think he's good. I'm okay with leaving that white space. And there's just, even if I were to cut the pass through on that, it wouldn't really make a big difference. I'm kind of deciding as to whether or not I even bother cutting that out. I may not. I might not. The Knave of Hearts, I am going to cut that pass through out. The way that we can do a workaround for that is we're just going to take a very fine tipped pen, perhaps, and then just fill that in with black. What we're going to do is, just as we did with our shrubs, we're going to attach the characters to our balsa wood here. We're going to Mod Podge them down. Then what I'm going to do is cut them out so that we have our characters. But holy moly, I'm really excited. This is really progressing very well. I will say this, and you can, probably tell, it looks like there's watermarks here. There was a ripple in the actual magazine, and the copy, it kind of picked it up. In the backdrop, it's more so the garden scene, there was some rippling. Honestly, I'm okay with it because it's really adding to kind of like our antique aesthetic. Don't you love these little bushes? I think that's so clever. Now, we're not going to have the shrubs per se, but you can kind of get an idea, again, providing us that depth. I love that. Oh, I'm so excited. So we're gonna do our updates here. The first update is that I did decide to go ahead and use the stencil to go across the front. I like it. It's keeping consistent, with the top, the sides, and of course the back that we did. So I'm really digging that. Now, I don't think that it's enough. Whoa. So what I did decide to go ahead and do is I actually have 2 of these, okay? And then I had these finials, and the finial, by chance, happened to slide right in there. So we did glue those in. And you can see I put down a black base paint to it and then just dry brushed gold over it. And I did the same thing to the actual pillar. So what we're gonna do, I kind of started here with it, which I wasn't really vibing with. I think that's a little weird. Put this one here. So I'm not digging that, right? What I am going to do is I'm going to actually pull these out all the way to the exterior. I'm digging that. That's giving me the look that I want. Am I going to put something else here? I don't know. I don't know visually if that makes sense, if it would be period correct. I think I could get away with it, but I'm digging this for what it is right now. Update is the shrubs. The shrubs, we went with the full length board, and I did paint that in black, so that does allow us to then put these in here, and they stand perfectly. Put this one in here. So again, it creates that depth that we're going for, giving us a 3D, look at that. And again, we do have our small shrubs, a little extra something something. I almost considered gluing these down, but look at that. Actually, let's move this one. I've discovered I like them angled rather than flat on. I think that is so great. Really loving that. The scene is set. And we do, of course, have all of our characters, which I did go through and cut out, put them onto the wood. They are painted. They each have little wooden stands to make them the most structurally sound. Really pleased with the way that the characters came out.
They're a little crude, admittedly, on some of them, but honestly, I think that it adds to the vibe of them being antique. I love it. They're bright and vibrant, and I did decoupage. You can kind of see a little bit of a shine to them there just to keep them safe. I don't know who my favorite character is. I have to say, for some reason, the Knave of Hearts is I'm really digging him. So the last thing we're going to do is glue these on, and there's one other feature. I'm going to show you guys. There was a change of plans to the facade of the front, but before I reveal that, I forgot that I recently found this little picture frame at a flea market, and I got it with a very specific purpose of framing our Alice in Wonderland play. So I'm going to paint that. Maybe a copper. I think I'm going to go with copper on that. I'm going to glue it down, and then I'll do the full reveal. Okay, so I ultimately went with this. We added the stencil on. I did decide to go ahead, put these guys all the way over to the side, and I added in these embellishments, again, kind of with the black and gold theme. So I'm really liking the way ultimately that it came out. I did add on our little picture frame right there. Of course, the puppet theater is looking excellent, but there's only one problem. It looks a little dark. Not to worry, because I did add in these tiny little adhesive push lights. This one we painted gold for a little bit more ambient light. This one we left as is to give us full daylight. And I did add in, believe it or not, a third one, get this out, right back here to cast some light in our garden scene. There we go. So when we put it all together, it looks there like we go. The lighting is in effect. Let's add in our backdrop. Add in our foreground. Last thing we're missing, of course, is our actors. We, of course, have Alice and the Knave of Hearts. Pull out, check it out. Add in the White Rabbit. Of course, the Mad Hatter. There it is, you guys. What do you all think? I am really pleased. Let me know. We might need to do another one. I definitely learned a couple of things, but overall, I think it's pretty epic. And there, of course, is our garden party. I love it. Thanks for watching, you guys. If you like it, let me know down in the comments, and we might have another fairy tale puppet theater, paper doll puppet theater to make for you. Bye, guys.